Captain Lee Tae-ho stood on the bridge of the starship Aegis and watched the stars through the large window. This was humanity's first trip beyond their solar system. After 200 years of dreaming about space travel, humans had finally built a ship that could move faster than light. The journey had been smooth for 3 weeks. Earth was now just a distant memory behind them. Tae-ho felt proud to lead this mission. His crew of 50 people represented the best that humanity could offer. "Captain," called out Lieutenant Park So-jin from her station. She was the ship's science officer and expert on alien life. "I'm reading something strange on our sensors." Tae-ho walked over to look at her screen. "What kind of strange?" "A massive object is moving toward us. It's much bigger than our ship." So-jin's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "Wait, Captain. This isn't natural. It's a ship." The bridge went quiet. Everyone stopped what they were doing. This was the moment they had all wondered about. Were humans alone in the universe? The answer was coming toward them at high speed. "How big is it?" asked Colonel Kim Dong-woo. He was the military advisor for the mission. His job was to keep everyone safe. "At least 10 times larger than the Aegis," So-jin replied. Her voice was steady, but Tae-ho could see worry in her eyes. "All crew to battle stations," Tae-ho ordered. Red lights began flashing throughout the ship. "But do not charge weapons. We don't know if they're friendly." The alien ship appeared on their main screen a few minutes later. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The hull was black with silver lines running across it. Strange symbols glowed blue along its sides. It looked like nothing humans had ever built. "Captain, they're sending us a message," said Communications Officer Yoon Hee-jin. "Put it on screen." The image that appeared made everyone gasp. The alien was tall and thin with pale blue skin. Its eyes were large and completely black. It wore what looked like armor made of crystal. The creature's face showed no emotion. "I am Commander Vextar of the Valerian Empire," the alien said. Its voice was cold and mechanical. "You are humans from the planet Earth?" "Yes," Tae-ho replied, trying to sound calm. "I am Captain Lee Tae-ho. We come in peace." Vextar made a sound that might have been laughter. "Peace is not your choice to make, human. The Valerian Empire has ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. Every species must bow to our power or be destroyed." Dongwoo stepped forward. "We are not looking for trouble. We're just exploring." "Your exploration ends now," Vextar said. "We have watched your species for some time. You have finally developed space travel. This means you must choose. Submit to the Empire and serve us, or your entire species will be eliminated." The words hit the bridge crew like a physical blow. Tae-ho felt his heart racing, but he kept his face calm. "That seems like a big decision. Can you give us time to think about it? You doubt our power?" Vextar's black eyes seemed to grow larger. "Let me show you why resistance is impossible." The alien touched something on his armor. Suddenly, a hologram appeared in the air between them. It showed Valerian soldiers in battle. They wore the same crystal armor as their commander. Energy weapons from enemy forces hit the armor but did no damage at all. The crystal surface simply absorbed the attacks. "Our armor has been tested against every weapon in the galaxy," Vextar continued. "Nothing can penetrate it. No force can harm us. We are invincible." The hologram showed more scenes. Alien cities burning, ships exploding in space, different species kneeling before Valerian forces. All of them had tried to fight and lost. "We have conquered 437 different species," Vextar said with pride. "Each one thought they could resist us. Each one learned they were wrong." So-jin looked at the data on her screen. "Captain, their armor appears to deflect all forms of energy weapons completely. Lasers, plasma bolts, particle beams, nothing gets through." Tae-ho nodded but kept looking at the alien commander. "What exactly do you want from humanity?" "Your species will provide workers for our empire. You will mine our worlds and build our ships. In return, we will allow you to live. It is a generous offer. And if we refuse?" Vextar's expression did not change. "Then we will destroy every human settlement. Your Earth will become a dead rock floating in space. Choose wisely." The connection ended. The alien ship remained where it was, waiting. Dongwoo was the first to speak. "Captain, we need to contact Earth immediately." "Already working on it," Hee-jin said from her station. "But it will take hours for our message to reach home even with our fastest communications." Tae-ho sat down in his captain's chair. His mind was racing. Humanity had dreamed of meeting aliens for centuries. They had always hoped it would be peaceful. Instead, they faced slavery or death. "So, Jin, what's your analysis of their technology?" The science officer was still studying her readings. Their armor is incredible, Captain. The energy absorption is complete. I've never seen anything like it. What about their weapons? All energy-based from what I can tell. Plasma cannons, laser arrays, particle accelerators, very advanced. Dongwu crossed his arms. But we saw how their armor works. It only deflected energy weapons in those battle scenes. What are you thinking? Taeho asked. I'm thinking about what they didn't show us, Dongwu replied. Every weapon in those holograms used energy. Lasers, plasma, that sort of thing. So Jin looked up from her screen. You think there might be other types of weapons they haven't faced? Maybe, but right now we need to warn Earth. Taeho stood up. Yeah, Jin. Send an emergency message to Earth Command. Tell them about the Valerians and their demands. Include all our sensor data about their ship and armor. Yes, Captain. How long before we can expect a reply? At least 8 hours, sir. 8 hours. Taeho looked back at the alien ship on their screen. It sat there like a giant predator waiting to strike. He thought about Earth, about the billions of people who had no idea their entire future hung in the balance. Captain, Dongwu said quietly, what are we going to tell them when they contact us again? Taeho was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. We're going to tell them that humanity doesn't kneel to anyone. The bridge crew looked at their captain with a mixture of fear and admiration. They all knew what this meant. They were choosing war against an enemy that claimed to be invincible, but they were human. And humans had never been good at giving up without a fight. General Han Jae-wook stood in the war room deep beneath Earth's surface. The message from Captain Lee Taeho had arrived 6 hours ago. Since then, every military leader on the planet had been working without rest. The room was filled with screens showing data about the alien threat. Scientists, soldiers, and engineers argued about the best way to fight an enemy that seemed impossible to defeat. Show me the footage again, Han ordered. Dr. Choi Min-seo, Earth's top weapons engineer, played the hologram from the alien ship. They watched Valerian soldiers walk through enemy fire without taking any damage. Their crystal armor absorbed every energy blast. We've analyzed this data from every angle, Min-seo said. Their armor is perfect against energy weapons. Our plasma, rifles, laser cannons, and particle beams would be useless. Lieutenant Yoon Hyejin raised her hand. She was Earth's best sniper and knew more about weapons than almost anyone. Dr. Choi, what exactly did we see in that footage? Valerian armor deflecting attacks. No, I mean what kind of attacks? Hyejin stood up and pointed at the screen. Every weapon they showed us used energy. Plasma bolts, laser beams, charged particles. Sergeant Oh Kyung-soo nodded from across the room. He led one of Earth's elite infantry units. She's right. I didn't see a single bullet in any of those battle scenes. Dr. Min-seo looked confused. Bullets? Sergeant, bullets are ancient technology. No advanced civilization uses kinetic projectiles anymore. Maybe that's exactly the point, Hyejin said. Her voice was getting excited. What if the Valerians have never faced kinetic weapons? What if their armor was only designed to stop energy attacks? The room went quiet. Everyone was thinking about what this could mean. General Han walked over to the display screen. Dr. Choi, is it possible their armor could stop bullets? Well, theoretically. Min-seo paused and ran some calculations on her tablet. Actually, I'm not sure. Energy absorption and kinetic impact resistance are completely different things. Explain it in simple terms, Han said. Think of it like this. Their armor might be like a mirror that reflects light perfectly. But just because it can reflect, light doesn't mean it can stop a rock from being thrown at it. Sergeant O stood up. Are you saying our old-fashioned guns might work better than our advanced energy weapons? I'm saying it's possible, Min-seo replied. But we need to test this theory. Han turned to his aide. Get me the president on a secure line. And contact our weapons factories immediately. Within an hour, President Kang Soo-jin had approved the largest weapons production effort in human history. Every factory that could make ammunition was converted to produce bullets, shells, and kinetic projectiles. Dr. Min-seo worked with her team to design new types of ammunition. They created bullets with tungsten cores that could punch through almost anything. They built shells that could be fired from railguns at incredible speeds. We're betting everything on untested weapons. Worried, Doctor, Park Jin-woo, the president's science advisor. We're betting everything on human ingenuity, Han replied. It's what we've always done. Lieutenant Hyejin was put in charge of training programs for kinetic weapons. Most soldiers had trained with energy weapons for years. Now they had to learn to use guns that their great-grandparents might have recognized. The principles are different, she explained to a group of officers. Energy weapons need time to charge and aim precisely. Kinetic weapons fire instantly but need to account for distance and gravity. The training was intense. Soldiers practiced shooting targets from different distances. They learned to calculate wind speed and bullet drop. Skills that had been forgotten for decades were suddenly the most important knowledge on Earth. Sergeant O worked with infantry units on new tactics. If our theory is right, we'll have one advantage, he told his men. The aliens won't expect kinetic weapons. They've probably never faced an enemy that uses bullets. What if we're wrong? Asked Private First Class Shin Yuri. She was young, but already showing promise as a soldier. Then we fight anyway, O replied, because that's what humans do. Meanwhile, Dr. Minseo was discovering interesting things about human weapons technology. We've been so focused on energy weapons that we stopped improving kinetic ones, she told her research team. But the basic physics haven't changed. A fast-moving piece of metal still carries enormous energy. She designed new rifle rounds with depleted uranium cores. The military built railguns that could fire projectiles at 10 times the speed of normal bullets. Engineers created artillery shells that could punch through meters of solid steel. The aliens think we're primitive, Minseo said as she watched a test firing. Maybe being primitive is exactly what we need. Intelligence reports from the Aegis showed that the Valerian ship was still waiting. It hadn't moved closer to Earth, but it hadn't left either. Captain Lee Tae-ho had requested more time to consider their ultimatum, and the aliens had agreed to wait 1 month. They're confident, General Han observed. They think we can't possibly threaten them. That confidence might be their weakness, suggested Dr. Nam Yoonji, a military psychologist. They've conquered hundreds of species. They probably follow the same pattern every time. What pattern? Han asked. Show overwhelming force, demand surrender, destroy anyone who resists. They've done it so many times that they don't expect surprises anymore. As the days passed, Earth transformed into a fortress. Weapons factories worked around the clock. Soldiers trained with kinetic weapons until they could hit targets in their sleep. Scientists built new types of ammunition that had never been tested in combat. The most important question remained unanswered. Would any of this work? Dr. Min Seo ran computer simulations, but she couldn't be sure. The Valerian armor was made from materials that Earth science didn't fully understand. All they could do was prepare and hope. We're ready for field testing, she announced after 2 weeks of preparation. General Han authorized tests against captured alien materials from previous first contact missions. But those other aliens had much simpler technology than the Valerians. The tests are promising, Minseo reported. Kinetic projectiles penetrate materials that stop energy weapons completely. But will it work against Valerian armor? Han asked. We won't know until we try. Lieutenant Hyejin had trained thousands of soldiers in kinetic weapon tactics. They're as ready as we can make them, she told the general. Our snipers can hit targets at 2 kilometers. Our infantry can maintain accurate fire under pressure. And if the aliens adapt? Then we adapt faster, Hyejin replied with confidence. Sergeant O was equally optimistic about his ground forces. The men are motivated, sir. They know what's at stake. Do they understand that we might be wrong about the kinetic weapons? They understand that we're human, O said. And humans don't give up. As the month deadline approached, Earth's preparations reached a fever pitch. Every major city had kinetic weapon emplacements. Soldiers carried rifles loaded with tungsten core bullets. Artillery units practiced with high-velocity shells. Are we really going to war with bullets against an empire that has conquered hundreds of worlds? President Kang asked during a final briefing. General Han looked at the assembled leaders. Scientists, soldiers, engineers, and politicians had all worked together for this moment. Madam President, we're going to war with human determination. The bullets are just tools. Dr. Minseo added, Sometimes the simplest solutions work best. The aliens have spent thousands of years perfecting defenses against advanced weapons. They never considered that someone might shoot them with a piece of metal. The final week of preparation was filled with nervous energy. Everyone knew that humanity's future would be decided soon. Either their desperate gamble would work, or Earth would face destruction. Whatever happens, General Han told his officers, we face it as humans. We don't kneel and we don't surrender. As the Valerian deadline approached, Earth waited. Billions of people looked up at the stars and wondered if they would still be free tomorrow. The answer would come with the sound of gunfire. Admiral Bae Sung-min watched through the observation deck of Earth's orbital defense station as dark shapes appeared in the distance. The Valerian invasion fleet had arrived exactly 30 days after their ultimatum. Hundreds of alien ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel around Earth's solar system. How many ships are we looking at? Bae asked his tactical officer. At least 300 confirmed, Admiral. They're still arriving. Bae felt his stomach tighten. Earth's entire space fleet consisted of only 40 ships. They were outnumbered nearly 10 to 1. Sir, incoming transmission from the Valerian flagship. Commander Vextar appeared on the main screen. His crystal armor gleamed under the lights of his bridge. Admiral Bae Sung-min of Earth, your month has ended. What is humanity's answer? Bae stood straight and looked directly at the alien commander. Our answer is no. We will not surrender. Vextar's black eyes showed no emotion. Then you have chosen death. We will demonstrate our power once more before we destroy your planet. The transmission ended. Moments later, energy beams shot out from the Valerian ships. They struck an abandoned asteroid in Earth's system. The massive rock simply disappeared in a flash of light. All ships, this is Admiral Bae, he announced on the fleet communication channel. Remember your orders. Avoid energy weapon exchanges. Use kinetic weapons only. Good luck. The space battle began immediately. Valerian ships moved forward in perfect formation. Their energy shields glowed as Earth's vessels fired railguns and kinetic missiles at them. To everyone's relief, the kinetic weapons worked against their shields. Tungsten projectiles punched through energy barriers that would have stopped laser fire completely. Several alien ships took damage right away. They're confused, reported the tactical officer. Their formations are breaking apart, but the Valerians quickly adapted. They had overwhelming numbers, and their energy weapons were devastatingly effective against Earth ships. Within an hour, half of humanity's space fleet was destroyed or disabled. Admiral, we can't hold them much longer. Came a desperate call from Captain Ryu Inho of the cruiser Defiance. Fall back to Earth orbit, Bae ordered. Let the ground forces have their turn. On Earth's surface, Major Lim Ji-hoon watched the sky through his binoculars as the first Valerian landing craft entered the atmosphere. The alien ships looked like falling stars as they descended toward the planet. All units, this is command, Ji-hoon spoke into his radio. They're coming down in Sector 7, defensive positions, everyone. Private First Class Shin Yuri crouched behind a concrete barrier with her rifle ready. She was scared but determined. Her weapon was a simple kinetic rifle loaded with tungsten core bullets. It looked primitive compared to the energy weapons she had trained with, but it was all they had. Remember what we learned in training, Sergeant Oh Kyung-soo called out to his squad. Aim for center mass. Let the bullets do the work. The first Valerian landing craft touched down a kilometer away. The door opened with a hiss and alien soldiers marched out in perfect formation. Their crystal armor sparkled in the sunlight. They moved with complete confidence. They're not even taking cover, Yuri whispered to the soldier next to her. Why would they? He replied. Their armor has never been penetrated. The Valerian soldiers walked across the open ground toward the human defensive positions. They didn't run or try to hide. Energy weapons fired from their hands, sending plasma bolts toward the Earth forces. Hold your fire, Oh commanded. Let them get closer. The aliens advanced steadily. They were only 300 meters away now. Yuri could see their faces through their helmet visors. They looked calm and confident. 200 meters, Oh counted down. 150. A plasma bolt hit the concrete near Yuri's position. The barrier melted like butter. Another soldier screamed as energy fire caught his arm. 100 meters, Oh continued. Now all units open fire. The sound was incredible. Hundreds of kinetic weapons fired at once. The air filled with the crack of rifle shots and the whistle of bullets flying through the air. Yuri aimed her rifle at the chest of the nearest Valerian soldier and pulled the trigger. The bullet flew across the distance in a fraction of a second. She expected to see it bounce off the alien's armor harmlessly. Instead, she watched in amazement as the crystal surface shattered like glass. The bullet punched completely through the alien's chest and out the other side. The Valyrian soldier looked down at the hole in his armor with complete shock. Green blood began to pour out. He took 2 more steps and then collapsed. All around the battlefield, the same thing was happening. Tungsten bullets were smashing through Valyrian armor like it was made of ice. Alien soldiers who had never been hurt in battle were falling to simple gunfire. "It's working," Yuri shouted over the noise. "The bullets are going right through them." The effect on the Valyrian forces was immediate and devastating. These soldiers had conquered hundreds of worlds without ever being wounded. Now they were dropping like targets in a shooting gallery. Some aliens tried to find cover, but they had never learned how to fight defensively. Others stood in the open, unable to believe what was happening to them. "Keep firing," O yelled. "Don't let them regroup." The human forces pressed their advantage. Snipers like Lieutenant Yoon Hye-jin picked off alien officers from long distance. Infantry units advanced, forcing the Valyrians to retreat toward their landing craft. "This is impossible," one alien was heard screaming over intercepted communications. "Our armor cannot be defeated." But the evidence was all around them. Valyrian soldiers lay motionless on the battlefield, their crystal armor shattered by simple metal bullets. Major Ji-hoon coordinated the defense from his command post. "All units, the kinetic weapons are extremely effective. Continue the attack. Do not let them escape." The word spread quickly through both human and alien forces. Earth's desperate gamble had worked. Kinetic weapons were cutting through the supposedly invincible Valyrian armor with ease. In space, Admiral Bay received the reports from the ground battle. "All ships, you heard that. The kinetic weapons work perfectly. Resume the attack." The few remaining Earth vessels opened fire on the Valyrian fleet with renewed confidence. Railgun projectiles smashed through alien hulls that had seemed indestructible just hours before. "Sir, the Valyrian ships are pulling back," reported the tactical officer. "Press the attack," Bay ordered. "Don't give them time to think." On the ground, the first wave of Valyrian soldiers was retreating in complete panic. Many had never experienced fear in battle before. The sight of their invincible armor being destroyed by primitive weapons broke their confidence completely. Private Yuri advanced with her squad, firing at fleeing aliens. Each shot that hit shattered more crystal armor. The Valyrians were running now, abandoning equipment and wounded comrades in their rush to escape. "I can't believe it," she said to Sergeant O. "We're actually winning." "Don't get overconfident," O warned. "They'll try to adapt. But right now we have them scared." The retreat turned into a rout. Valyrian soldiers crowded around their landing craft, desperate to get off the planet. Some craft were so overloaded that they crashed while trying to take off. Commander Vextar watched the disaster from his flagship in orbit. His perfect armor had been defeated by metal projectiles that any primitive species could manufacture. The reputation of Valyrian invincibility was shattered as completely as his soldiers' armor. "Sir, our ground forces are requesting immediate evacuation," reported his tactical officer. "Granted," Vextar replied. His voice was no longer confident. "Pull all ships back to a safe distance." "What about the invasion, sir?" Vextar looked at the planet below where his supposedly invincible forces had been routed by humans with simple guns. "Contact the Empire. Tell them we need reinforcements." "How many ships, sir?" "All of them." As the Valyrian fleet retreated, celebrations erupted across Earth. The impossible had happened. Humanity had defeated an enemy that claimed to be invincible. But the war was far from over. The Valyrians would return with more ships and new tactics. However, the psychological advantage had shifted completely. The aliens no longer believed in their own superiority, and every human soldier now knew that bullets could stop the unstoppable. Captain Ryu Inho floated through the corridors of the damaged Valyrian warship Thunder of Empire. His special forces team had managed to board the alien vessel during the chaotic retreat. The ship's artificial gravity was failing, making everything drift in the air. "Keep your weapons ready," he whispered to his team through their helmet radios. "We don't know if there are survivors aboard." The human soldiers carried modified kinetic weapons designed for use in space. Their bullets were specially made to punch through alien armor without damaging the ship's hull too badly. They found the first group of Valyrian crew members huddled in what looked like a medical bay. The aliens were treating wounded soldiers whose crystal armor had been shattered by human bullets. "Don't move," Ryu ordered in the Valyrian language that Earth's computers had learned to translate. "We're taking this ship." The aliens looked at the humans with a mixture of fear and confusion. These Valyrians had conquered hundreds of worlds, but they had never been captured before. They didn't know what to do. Dr. Nam Yunji was part of Ryu's boarding team. She was a battlefield medic, but she was also studying Valyrian biology. What she found surprised her. "Captain, look at this," she called from where she was examining a wounded alien. "Without their armor, they're actually quite fragile." The injured Valyrian soldier was much weaker than he had appeared in his crystal suit. His bones seemed thin, and his muscles were underdeveloped. "I think they've become dependent on their armor for everything," Nam continued. "Physical strength, protection, maybe even basic life support." This was important information. The Valyrians weren't just protected by their armor, they needed it to function properly. Without it, they were vulnerable in ways that went beyond just defense. In space above Earth, Commander An Boram was leading a pursuit of retreating Valyrian ships. Her destroyer Courage had been damaged in the first battle, but it could still fight. "Target the damaged cruiser on our starboard side," she ordered her weapons officer. "Hit them with everything we have." Kinetic projectiles streaked through space toward the alien ship. The Valyrian vessel tried to maneuver away, but it was too slow. Railgun rounds punched through its hull, causing massive internal explosions. "Direct hit," called out the tactical officer. "Their engines are gone." "Prepare boarding parties," Boram commanded. "We're going to capture that ship." The Valyrian cruiser Endless Victory was helpless without its engines. Human Marines used magnetic clamps to attach their boarding pods to the alien hull. Within minutes, they were cutting through the ship's armor with industrial tools. The Valyrians inside were panicking. They had never experienced defeat before, and they didn't know how to respond to being boarded by enemy forces. "Surrender, and you will not be harmed," Boram announced over the ship's communication system. "Continue to resist and we will destroy this vessel." Most of the Valyrian crew gave up immediately. They were trained to fight with overwhelming technological superiority, not to defend against boarding actions. Captain Ryu's team had secured their captured ship and was learning valuable intelligence. The Valyrians had detailed records of their previous conquests stored in their computers. "Captain, you need to see this," said technical specialist Park Min-ho as he accessed the alien databases. "They've conquered over 400 different species, but every single battle followed the same pattern." "What pattern?" Ryu asked. "They arrive with superior numbers and energy weapons. The enemy tries to fight back with energy weapons of their own. The Valyrian armor deflects everything and they win easily." Ryu studied the battle records on the alien screens. Species after species had fallen to the same tactics. Energy weapons against energy-resistant armor. "Not one of these civilizations used kinetic weapons?" he asked. "Not a single one," Minho confirmed. "Energy weapons are considered more advanced, so every spacefaring species develops them first. Kinetic weapons are seen as primitive. But primitive works," Ryu said with satisfaction. Dr. Nam was interrogating captured Valyrian officers with the help of translation computers. What she learned was even more interesting than their battle tactics. "They're telling me that the Empire has strict rules about technological development," she reported to Ryu. "Only energy-based. Weapons are considered worthy of an advanced civilization." "You mean they chose not to use kinetic weapons?" "Worse than that. Any species that relies on kinetic weapons is considered too primitive to be a threat. The Empire doesn't even study those weapons." This explained everything. The Valyrians had become so focused on energy weapons that they had never considered alternatives. Their armor was perfect against energy attacks but useless against simple bullets. "It's like they became specialized to the point of weakness," Nam observed. "They're so good at fighting one type of war that they can't handle anything different." Commander Boram had captured the Valyrian cruiser and was examining its design. The ship was impressive but had obvious weaknesses. "Their hull armor is designed to deflect energy weapons," reported Chief Engineer Kim Tae-woon. "But it's actually quite thin against kinetic impacts." "Meaning?" "Our railguns can punch right through it. Their ships are built to fight enemies like themselves, not enemies like us." The captured Valyrian officers were providing more intelligence under questioning. They revealed that the Empire had never faced serious resistance before. "Every species surrenders after the first demonstration of our power," explained Subcommander Kolvex through the translation system. "Your species is behaving in a way we do not understand," What don't you understand? Boram asked. You continue to fight even when facing superior technology. This is not logical behavior, Boram smiled. You don't know much about humans, do you? The information from captured ships and prisoners was being transmitted back to Earth immediately. General Han Jae-wook studied the intelligence reports with great interest. They're not just technologically limited, he told his staff. They're psychologically limited, too. They can't adapt to unexpected situations. Dr. Choi Min-seo was already working on ways to exploit these weaknesses. If their armor can't stop kinetic weapons, then we need bigger kinetic weapons. What did you have in mind? Mass drivers. Orbital cannons that can fire tungsten rods at incredible speeds. If their ships can't handle railgun rounds, imagine what a telephone pole made of tungsten could do at 10 kilometers per second. The engineering teams got to work immediately. Earth's factories began producing massive kinetic weapons designed to destroy entire Valerian ships with single shots. Lieutenant Hyojin was training more snipers for long-range combat. The success of kinetic weapons had changed everything about human military doctrine. We're not just fighting an enemy, she told her trainees. We're fighting an enemy's expectations. They expect us to use energy weapons. They expect us to surrender when outgunned. They expect us to follow their rules. What do we do instead? Asked one of the new snipers. We break their rules, Hyojin replied. We fight the way humans fight. Sergeant Oh was preparing his infantry for the next phase of the war. Intelligence suggested that the Valerians would return with reinforcements. They'll try to adapt, he warned his soldiers. Maybe thicker armor, maybe different tactics. But they're still thinking like Valerians. We need to think like humans. Private Yuri had become something of a hero after being the first human to kill a Valerian soldier, but she stayed focused on the mission. What makes humans different from all those other species they conquered? She asked Oh during a training break. Good question, Oh replied. What do you think? I think we're stubborn. Everyone else gave up when they saw the Valerian armor. We figured out how to break it. That's part of it. What else? Yuri thought for a moment. We don't follow the rules. They expect energy weapons, so we use bullets. They expect surrender, so we fight harder. Exactly. We're unpredictable, and that makes us dangerous. The captured Valerian officers were providing more intelligence about their empire's structure. It turned out that the invasion of Earth was just the beginning of a much larger conflict. The Empire has over 1 million ships, revealed High Commander Zaxthor during interrogation. When news of our defeat reaches the capital, they will send a full war fleet. How many ships is that? Asked the interrogator. 10,000 vessels. Enough to destroy your entire solar system. This news was sobering but not unexpected. Humanity had always known they were fighting a much larger enemy. But they also knew something the Valerians didn't. Word of humanity's victory was already spreading to other species throughout the galaxy. Races that had been conquered by the Empire were learning that the invincible Valerian armor could be defeated. Sir, reported intelligence officer Lee Dong-min to General Han, we're receiving secret communications from 17 different species. They want to know how we defeated the Valerians. What are we telling them? The truth. Kinetic weapons work. Energy weapons don't. And what are they doing with that information? Building guns, sir. Lots of guns. The tide was turning across the galaxy. Species that had been enslaved for generations were suddenly manufacturing kinetic weapons. The Valerian Empire's greatest strength, their invincible reputation, was crumbling. But Earth knew the real war was just beginning. The Empire would return with everything they had. President Kang Soo-jin stood in the Situation Room watching the tactical display as thousands of ships approached Earth's solar system. 6 months had passed since the first Valerian invasion failed. Now the Empire had returned with their entire war fleet. How many ships are we tracking? She asked Admiral Bae Sung-min. Over 8,000 confirmed contacts, Madam President. They're bringing everything they have. But Earth was not the same planet the Valerians had left 6 months ago. Massive orbital defense platforms armed with kinetic weapons surrounded the system. The human fleet had grown to over 200 ships, all equipped with railguns and projectile weapons. Incoming transmission from the Valerian flagship, announced the communications officer. Commander Vextar appeared on the main screen, but he looked different than before. His crystal armor was thicker and more elaborate. His face showed anger instead of confidence. President Kang Soo-jin of Earth, Vextar began. You have humiliated the Valerian Empire for the last time. We have brought our entire war fleet to end your species permanently. Commander Vextar, Kang replied calmly. You're making the same mistake you made before. You're underestimating humanity. We have learned from our previous encounter, Vextar sneered. Our armor has been improved. Our tactics have been changed. Your primitive projectiles will not save you this time. The transmission ended and the Valerian fleet began moving toward Earth. But as they advanced, something unexpected happened. Ships began appearing from other directions. Madam President called out the tactical officer with excitement. We have Allied vessels approaching from multiple vectors. The display lit up with hundreds of new contacts. Ships from dozens of different species were arriving to help defend Earth. All of them were armed with kinetic weapons based on human designs. Ambassador Park. Jinwoo smiled as he watched the Allied fleet take positions. For months, he had been working secretly with representatives from species the Valerians had conquered. The news of humanity's victory had spread like fire across the galaxy. The Korthax delegation is reporting ready, announced the communications officer. The Zelani fleet is in position. The Moravian ships are requesting targeting coordinates. Species that had been enslaved for generations were finally free to fight back, and they all wanted revenge against their former masters. Commander Vextar watched in growing alarm as more and more ships appeared around Earth. His invasion fleet was still larger, but he no longer had overwhelming numerical superiority. Sir, many of these ships are from species we conquered, reported his tactical officer. How did they rebuild their fleet so quickly? It doesn't matter, Vextar replied. Our armor improvements will protect us from their kinetic weapons. But when the battle began, the improved Valerian armor proved to be only marginally better than before. The aliens had made their crystal plating thicker, but they still didn't understand the physics of kinetic impact. General Hong Mi-young coordinated the defense from Earth's military command center. She had spent months studying Valerian tactics and preparing counter-strategies. All Allied ships, this is Earth Command, she announced. Execute Pattern Delta. Concentrate fire on their command vessels. The combined fleet opened fire with thousands of kinetic weapons. Railgun rounds, mass driver projectiles, and hypervelocity missiles streaked through space toward the Valerian formations. The aliens had arranged their ships in tight formations designed to maximize energy weapon coverage. But this made them perfect targets for kinetic bombardment. Captain Ryu In-ho commanded one of Earth's new assault cruisers. His ship was equipped with the latest kinetic weapons technology, including mass drivers that could fire tungsten telephone poles at incredible speeds. Target the Valerian dreadnought at Grid 77, he ordered his weapons officer. Full spread, maximum velocity. The mass driver rounds crossed the distance in seconds. The Valerian ship's energy shields were useless against physical projectiles. The tungsten rods punched through the hull like it was made of paper. Direct hit, called out the tactical officer. Their ship is breaking apart. All across the battlefield, the same scene was repeated. Valerian ships that had seemed invincible were being destroyed by simple kinetic weapons. Their improved armor was no match for concentrated projectile fire. Lieutenant Yoon Hee-jin was aboard a boarding pod approaching a damaged Valerian vessel. Her mission was to capture enemy officers for interrogation. Remember, their personal armor is still vulnerable to kinetic weapons, she told her team as they prepared to board. But don't get overconfident. They might have other surprises. The boarding action was swift and decisive. The Valerian crew had never learned to fight inside their own ships. They were overwhelmed within minutes. Dr. Nam Yoonji examined the captured aliens and confirmed what intelligence had suspected. They've become completely dependent on their armor technology, she reported to command. Without it, they can barely function. The battle in space was turning into a rout. Valerian ships were fleeing in all directions as the Allied fleet pressed their attack. The Empire's reputation for invincibility was being destroyed in real time. But the most important victory was happening on a different level. Across the galaxy, enslaved species were rising up against their Valerian overlords. Armed with kinetic weapons and inspired by humanity's example, they were fighting for their freedom. Sir, we're receiving reports from across the Empire, a communications officer told Vextar. Rebellions have started on over 300 worlds. How is this possible? Vextar demanded. They're all using kinetic weapons, sir. Our garrisons can't stop them. The Valerian Empire was collapsing from within. Centuries of conquests were being undone in a matter of days as species after species broke free from alien rule. President Kang watched the tactical display as the last Valerian ships fled Earth's solar system. The second invasion had failed even more completely than the first. Madam President, Ambassador Park reported, "We're receiving surrender requests from 17 Valerian fleet commanders. They want to negotiate. What are our terms?" Kang asked General Hong. "Complete withdrawal from all conquered worlds, reparations for damages, and a guarantee that they will never again attempt to invade or enslave any species." When Commander Vextar finally contacted Earth to discuss surrender terms, his arrogance was completely gone. He looked like a defeated commander facing the end of everything he had believed in. "President Kang," he said in a tired voice, "the Valerian Empire is prepared to discuss terms for ending hostilities." "The terms are simple," Kang replied. "Your empire will release all conquered species immediately. You will pay reparations for the damage you've caused, and you will never again attempt to dominate other civilizations. And if we refuse, then we continue this war until your empire no longer exists. You've seen what happened when you faced one human world. Do you really want to fight an entire galaxy armed with human weapons?" Vextar was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. "We accept your terms." The formal surrender ceremony took place on Earth 3 weeks later. Representatives from hundreds of liberated species gathered to witness the end of the Valerian Empire's reign of terror. Ambassador Park Jin-woo read the terms of the peace treaty to the assembled delegates. "The Valerian Empire hereby renounces all claims to conquered territories and agrees to respect the sovereignty of all species." But peace brought new responsibilities. The collapse of the empire had left a power vacuum across the galaxy. Many species looked to humanity for leadership. "We never wanted to rule the galaxy," President Kang told her advisors during a security briefing. "But someone needs to keep the peace." General Hong had a practical solution. "We don't rule them. We help them defend themselves. We share kinetic weapons technology and military training with anyone who wants it. And if other aggressive species try to take the Valerians' place, then they'll face the same thing the Empire faced. A galaxy full of species armed with human weapons and human tactics. The new galactic order was based on a simple principle. No species would be allowed to dominate others. Humanity became the reluctant guardian of galactic peace, not through conquest but through strength. Captain Lee Tae-ho, who had started this entire conflict by refusing the Valerian ultimatum, was promoted to admiral and given command of the new galactic defense fleet. His mission was to respond to threats against any member species. "How do we prevent another empire from rising?" he asked during his first staff meeting. "We make sure everyone can defend themselves," replied Colonel Kim Dong-woo, now a general. "The Valerians succeeded because most species couldn't fight back effectively. That won't happen again," Private First Class Shin Yuri, the first human to kill a Valerian soldier, had been promoted to sergeant and was training alien recruits in kinetic weapons tactics. "The key is not to rely on just one type of weapon," she explained to a class of former Valerian slaves. "Energy weapons have their place, but don't forget about kinetic projectiles. Sometimes the simple solution is the best solution." Dr. Choi Min-seo had become the galaxy's leading expert on military technology. Her research teams were developing new types of kinetic weapons that could be manufactured by any species. "The most important lesson," she told a gathering of alien scientists, "is that advance doesn't always mean better.